Well, let's stay with the whole theme of marriage that Yvette Cooper was just talking about there. The rights of couples who aren't wed, if they split up, are easy to summarise. There aren't any, unless you live in Scotland, that is. So, is that going to change south of the border? It seems that Labour have kicked a review into the long grass, but as Max Cotton has been finding out, it's the Conservatives who are looking at changing the law in this tricky area.
Who lives in a house like this? Well, these days it could just as easily be a couple who aren't married as a couple who are. What's the difference? It's simple. A married couple have financial obligations to each other if they split up. Cohabiting couples don't. The government have shied away from recent proposals to legislate to protect cohabiting couples. A future Conservative government might. What do you do, Tories are asking, about people who might have sacrificed careers and brought up children, but get left with nothing when their relationship ends because they're not married?
It's a political hot potato. Nobody wants to touch it.
I want to introduce you to someone I'm going to call Lily. She lived with her partner for nearly a decade. They had 2 children, but their relationship failed. This is her story. It's terribly personal. Why have you chosen to speak out about this?
Yeah, it is very personal and it's been incredibly painful, and that is the reason why I've chosen to speak out about it, because I don't want anybody else to go through what I've been through. And I think there's a huge amount of ignorance in terms of people understanding what their rights really are in terms of people who choose to cohabit. I think there's a huge, people
just don't know.
They just don't know. Yeah. They just don't know.
I know this is going to sound a bit blunt, but I know people are going to be sitting at home screaming at their tellies, "You should have got married."
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I would have loved to have got married. That's what I wanted. But unfortunately, it takes 2 people to get married, and I couldn't quite get my ex down the aisle, unfortunately. And I would have loved it.
You made sacrifices, didn't you?
I did. I left a very lucrative career, and after 9 years of our relationship, I've come out of a situation where I haven't obviously earned anything for that period of time. And I would say that I'm severely economically disadvantaged by that scenario, because as an individual, I'm not entitled to anything in terms of the 9 years of input into mine and our life together.
No, people very much still believe in the common law husband and wife myth, which is entirely that.
The law already provides for children when folks split up, but David Allison, who's a family lawyer, wants to see people, overwhelmingly women, having some recourse to law if they're left stranded financially at the end of a long relationship.
Well, the state gets involved in our personal lives to a large extent. We're in a civilised society. We should be encouraging social responsibility. I think that's the key with this. At the moment, and you're right, primarily men, can live with a woman for 20 years, have children with her and have absolutely no financial responsibility, and that can't be right.
So what's the situation at the moment? Well, according to the Office for National Statistics, in 2007 there were an estimated 4.5 million cohabiting adults in England and Wales, representing 10% of the population aged 16 and over. The number of cohabiting couples is projected to rise to over 7 million in the next 20 years, while the number of married couples is expected to remain stable.
Now, 1 in every 6 couples in the UK lives together without being married.
One of the Conservatives' best-known policies is to encourage marriage through the tax system. They've also told this programme they want to protect cohabiting couples. But can you do both?
It may well be traditional Conservative policy to say that we shouldn't give rights to cohabitees, but at the moment, people can walk away from those relationships, and the children are the people who are left suffering most. If we do bring in some new rights, I think you would avoid a great deal of misery. You would provide far more certainty for children in particular, and actually you would put in place, I think, a driver for more responsibility, and at the same time you may actually encourage marriage.
The Conservatives are going to face criticism if they pursue this, particularly from their own backbenches.
David Cameron has been very clear that we're going to support families. We're going to support families through the tax system. We're going to get away with the couple penalty, whereas actually you're better if you're married to split up. You'll be better off on benefits if you're not married. That cannot be right, and we're going to make sure that that isn't the case. So I think our thrust is trying to encourage more people to get married, and I think the proposals that I've seen are actually, it will result in more people actually not getting married, so I don't think it's the right way forward.
Baroness DEECH is a lawyer. She says the children of cohabiting parents are already protected under the 1989 Children's Act. For her, this is really about civil liberties.
I've been arguing for 30 years or more against any proposals that would impose a matrimonial-type contract or regime on two people who've decided to live together and have decided not to get married. And if you haven't got married, you've decided not to, or the other person won't marry you, then you're two individuals living outside the matrimonial regime, and it does not seem to me to be right, therefore, to require one person to give another one money when that relationship comes to an end for whatever reason.
More and more people are deciding not to marry. In Scotland, they've recently passed regulations that bind cohabitees in law, but the Ministry of Justice have told the rest of us that it's up to individual couples to draft wills and make contracts to protect ourselves. If we don't like that advice, the only other solution is to say, I do.
Max Cotton reporting